Welcome to the Science of Relevancy. Hi, this is your host, Rex Allen, and today we're continuing our conversation around impacts of the gig economy. Today is episode 6. We refer to this. For those who might be new to the show, and the thing that we talk about most here is the science of relativity, and how do you, as a company, as a marketing department, as a sales team, as an individual, stay relevant in this current world. So the digital age is on fire. We're seeing lots of innovation in lots of industries, almost every industry. There's innovation that comes each and every day, and some of it's coming so fast that it's hard to keep up with. So we continue to talk about the science of relevancy and how do you remain relevant. So we started talking about the gig economy companies and the things that are happening, a quick refresh of that. We see tons of these examples of companies who basically have come out and they've changed business models. I mean, think about it's kind of like fractional use. So Airbnb, I mean, it being out there and it's changed the way that people do lodging and travel. Uber, Lyft, Upwork, how people find gigs. And so the whole thought of the gig economy is, people doing fractional services or providing fractional resources to get tasks done. But what I really want to focus today is this element of trust. And I think there's a new element of trust that has evolved. And, brand trust for companies has been around forever. And I don't care if you own a local bicycle shop, a daycare center, a restaurant, whatever, everybody builds their brand. And then they spend a lot of time building a brand for their business. Well, that's kind of a individual brand that's out there, but there's two new ones. Collaborative brand like Uber and Lyft or Airbnb, where you're depending on all kinds of people, subcontractors, to deliver on the brand. So the question out there is how successful can that be? And it's really kind of strange because we've introduced this concept of trust, and I'll come back to that. And then the second type of brand that's evolving is individual brand. And if you are a person who is engaged in doing all kinds of services through Upwork or Fiverr or any of these TaskRabbit, any of these types of platforms, you've got to build an individual brand. Now, one could say, oh, you've always had to do that. Everybody needs their own sort of individual branding. There's all kinds of professional coaches out there that talk about this, but it's really unique because we are talking about a world now that is global, that you can hire someone from around the world, never meet them, and then you have to rely on them in their individual brand based on what you can read, maybe a Skype interview, but mostly it's a read on their services. And then the real thing that nails your individual brand is your ability to deliver. Okay. So it's kind of interesting. I have firsthand experience with this in my software company. We do work with lots of people on a global basis. I've got a graphic artist that's in Cebu, Philippines. I've got developers and programmers in India. I've had other graphic designers in Serbia, people who deliver services from London, programming from London, programming from India and the Philippines. So it's all over the place, but we never meet those people. And it's a different element that we are introducing, this element of trust. And it's almost a dichotomy because, in this day and age, with all the weirdos out there and all the crap that's happening in our world, where there is this exposure of the human element of people that are doing wacky things, most of us have learned not to trust many people. I mean, think about this. When I grew up, my parents made sure we had our coats on, our lunch bags with us, or maybe even a lunch pail, and we walked out the door. And we walked, when I went to elementary school, about 6 blocks. When I went to junior high, about 9 blocks. And when I went to high school, I walked for the first year. It was about a mile. Well, today, the idea that we would send our kids out and let them just walk to school, and in any type of community in America, most people wouldn't do it. There's this element of fear, element of distrust. So now we have these services that are being delivered to us by total strangers for very intimate and very personal type services. So let's look at the whole ground transportation industry. Certainly, cabs and taxi companies have been around for a long time. But now with these apps, we've kind of built this false trust of, hey, when somebody comes, then I've got somebody I can trust. And think about it. We've seen disasters in this. This last summer here in Denver, an Uber driver shot and killed his passenger. There's still a debate what really happened, but he unloaded and shot the guy 10 times. So they found 10 shell casings at the site. Now, I don't know about you, but that's pretty alarming, and that makes me consider, how good is the screening, what's happening. Of course, the human element's always going to be there. But it's kind of interesting. We have this dichotomy. Because it's on an app, we've built this, in my mind, maybe a little bit of false trust. I mean, are you going to have somebody from TaskRabbit come over and rake your leaves and get into your house and vacuum and do these things? Well, who knows? There's a lot of these types of apps out there. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, think about this. If 20 years ago, going back to my example of walking to school, if I were to tell you 20 years ago that you're going to step out on the corner, whether it was outside of a restaurant, a business, or your home, and you're going to have a come to your house, a complete stranger in an individual vehicle, and you're going to hop in their vehicle and count on the fact that they have been trained, that they're safe, that they're licensed, that they're insured, and they're not just some crazy person. I mean, think about that. Nobody would have done that 20 years ago. And so it's really an interesting dichotomy that's been created, that we are trusting people now for tons of services that are fairly invasive. So the question I pose to people and to think about, just because it's an app doesn't mean that you have instant trust on these services. Now, those who are using our task-oriented professional services, I don't think this quite applies, but this whole element of trust is interesting, and it's something to think through, because we would have never done this before. Now, what I really want to talk about also too is these, go back to the brands, because it's an important thing. When somebody builds a brand, let's say it's Home Depot or Walmart or Bed Bath and Beyond or McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, we see that they have the capability to replicate and sustain their brand strength. Okay. Fairly easy to do when you have thousands and thousands of locations. The products are the same, the experience is the same. So it brand reputation, while it costs a lot of money, it's out there and it has this strength. Well, the question is, can you do that, and what type of skills do you need to do that on an individual basis? So I really think that individual brand, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot in these delivery of services, individual brands can become really important and possibly more important, and be a new norm in the collaborative delivery of services. You have a lot of people who are working on projects, and they break it up into tasks and deliver it out to people. An individual brand is really going to be based on your ability to deliver. And it's interesting because you've got all of these, like especially in the rideshare business, you got all of these subcontractors, because none of them are employees. And they're showing up, and they are your face to the customer. So you've got to count on their individual brand, their individual capabilities to create the customer experience. So I think it's a big challenge for the gig economy, because anytime you introduce people, uh, you have all kinds of individuals and experiences that happen. And so I think one of the areas that I've been frustrated with so far is the equality of brand and the equality of service when you run into these types of companies with Uber, Lyft, Airbnb. Sometimes you go to an Airbnb and it's really nice and it meets the what's been on the website, and sometimes you go there and it's junk. So it's an interesting concept, and I think those who are going to be successful in this gig economy will really try to pay attention to training and the ability to deliver their brands with independent contractors and fractional um, portions of services broken up to different individuals. So it's something to think about. As we go through our world today with all the disruption and the things that are happening, we need to kind of stop and not just accept these things as, oh, wow, that's the new norm. I think we have to go through and look at what are some of the side effects and what is important in this economy when we're talking about the delivery of products and services. So that's our episode today, talking about trust, talking about brand, talking about collaborative brands and individual brands. So if you like the content, please subscribe to our channel and also give us high marks on podcast. We will continue the conversations and be thinking about the elements and the impacts of innovation. Until next time, make it a great day.